At Yarmouth High School, and I'm joined on stage by YHS teacher Mr. Kim and Robbie Patel. We are honored today to host the 25th District State Senate candidates, Cathy Breen and Barton Ladd, in a discussion centered around the future of our district and our state. It is no secret that this election cycle has brought division between groups and individuals in this country. We can see the effects of this in the media, popular culture, and even within our school. We are holding this debate for the purpose of modeling civil discourse, exhibiting respect within differing opinions, and displaying ethical leadership. In times of division, it is a necessity to unify around the goal of collaboration.
To succeed in our world and society, we must learn to work with others, building off their thoughts and strengths to create better ideas, solutions, and inventions. As young adults, we will be entering into the most complex society ever to exist on this planet, learning to discuss sensitive and controversial topics with respect, compassion, and integrity, all of which are core values of YHS, will be essential for you. These candidates are here today to demonstrate what it means to speak about issues in a way that opens dialogue and allows us to disagree while still moving forward. And perhaps most importantly, the issues the candidates will be speaking about today are affecting all of us, from bringing jobs to Maine to college tuition, topics that are worth being informed about as young adults ready to make their next step.
The candidates have agreed to engage in concrete, policy-based discussion for the next 40 minutes, and to avoid engaging in any form of personal attacks. Cathy Breen, a resident of Falmouth, has represented the 25th District in the Maine State Senate since 2014. Prior to her election to the Senate, Senator Breen served on the Falmouth Town Council from 2005 to 2011. Barton Ladd formerly served in the United States Air Force and now works as a pilot for Delta Airlines. Mr. Ladd served in the Georgia House of Representatives from 1990 to 1998 and in the Georgia State Senate from 1990 to 2000, later moving to Falmouth, Maine.
In terms of format, the candidates will be asked a question with a given amount of time for each of them to respond. Robbie Patel, Student Senate Vice President, will support us by keeping track of time for each response. He will warn the candidates when they have 30 seconds left with this sign over here, and ring a bell when a candidate's time is up. A short open discussion period will follow for certain questions, allowing the candidates to speak freely amongst themselves. We ask that the crowd remains respectful and attentive, as we know you can be, to keep the focus on what the candidates have to say and to get the most out of this great opportunity.
With that said, we invite you to applaud as we welcome the candidates, Senator Cathy Breen and Senator Barton Ladd. Thank you both for joining us. We'll start with opening statements. Please tell us about your past experiences and journey to running for this position. Additionally, please describe how you see the state Senate and legislature playing a role in the daily lives of Mainers. You will each be allotted 2 minutes to answer this question, and Mr. Ladd, you're up first.
Okay, thank you very much. It's really nice being here at the #1 school in the state of Maine. Students out there need to give yourselves a big pat on the back. And when you get a chance to, go ahead and go home and thank your parents, because they're the ones who are paying their property taxes to go ahead and fund this wonderful school. But I want you to look around at the side here. That's the faculty, okay? They're the ones that are making you #1. Do not forget them. I think back in my years in high school, and I can rattle off all the names of the teachers. Mr. Stahl, my Latin teacher, you got Latin here, so it's got to be kind of crazy to teach a dead language. But my physics teacher, Mr. Doty, my calculus teacher, Mrs. Ball, and right on down the line. You're going to remember those names of your teachers because they're going to have a tremendous impact on your lives. Now, you may talk about what's going on at the national level, but what's really affecting your lives now is what's happening at the state level. School is the #1, education is the #1 priority for the state of Maine. It's the big budget item, and this is what you get. You get the #1 school in the state. Now my background, I was 8 years, I was an Air Force pilot after graduating from Purdue University. I have a mechanical engineering degree, and then I went and got hired by Delta Airlines and moved to Georgia. and got pretty ticked off with some of the politics down there that I saw, so I decided to run for office. I got elected to the House for 8 years. I was in the Senate for 4 years, and then I got married, had kids and everything, and then I was born in Boston. Have big family ties here in Maine, so we vacationed here for a number of years, and we said, let's move back to Maine. So we moved back here a number of years ago, and here I am. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ladd. Senator Breen, your opening statement.
Thank you, and good morning, Yarmouth High School. It is really an enormous pleasure to be here. I want to echo Bart's words about the incredible caliber of the school and the faculty here. And in particular, I know how difficult it is to give up instructional time from your courses. So I'm very, very grateful that your school community has set aside time for this really, really important and I hope very hopeful event. I've had the great pleasure of getting to know Mr. Ladd over the past few months, and we've had a great time expressing our different views in very, very civil ways throughout the district. I'm sure today will be the same. I grew up in Burlington, Vermont, and I was very involved in student government, and I was in the 10th grade, which makes me pretty old, when Bernie Sanders was elected mayor of my hometown of Burlington, Vermont. And I got the great honor of getting to shadow him for a day in Burlington City Hall when I think I was maybe a junior or a senior. So I am really fortunate to have served on the Falmouth Town Council. I was very involved in the building of our new school and changing over that whole campus onto wood pellets, so we no longer burn any fossil fuel on the campus in Falmouth. I serve on the Environment and Natural Resources Committee in the Senate, and I look forward to sharing some of the other things I've done in the Senate as this morning progresses. Again, thank you so much for having us.
All right, so thank you for your opening statements. And we're going to move directly into one of the more pressing and dire issues in our state today. Maine has one of the highest drug use rates per capita in the country, particularly when it comes to prescription painkillers and opiates. Despite regulations on the availability of these drugs, substances like heroin and fentanyl have become more widespread in recent years. In 2015, 272 Mainers died of overdose, a 30% increase from 2014. In your opinions, what needs to change in our state's efforts to prevent this problem from getting worse, and how will you contribute to that solution? You will each have 1 minute to answer this question, followed by a 4-minute open discussion period. Senator Breen, if you wouldn't mind starting for us.
Opiate addiction is killing our kids, and that's why I was the lead Senate sponsor of the bill that made Narcan available through pharmacies and not only through prescriptions. What's happening is that when folks are in recovery and they relapse, their systems have lost tolerance to the high doses, and that's when the overdose death is most likely to happen. So through my work, if you are a family member, a roommate, a neighbor of someone who's suffering from addiction, you can get a Narcan with instructions on how to use it at your local pharmacy. This is part of a program that I believe we need 3 prongs: law enforcement, education and prevention, and better treatment options.
Thank you, Senator Breen. Mr. Ladd.
First of all, I'll put a little plug in. If you're 18 years old, please vote no on number 1, and don't even go there. Okay, just trust me on that. The addiction problem is very real. How do we handle it? I believe in looking at what other states do and copying from other states. I'm not talking about Georgia in this case. I'm talking about Massachusetts in this case. What they have is they have a rehab system set up, ready to go. And if you talk to the experts in the field, they'll tell you that if you put Narcan and you have to, save somebody's life by using that, you have to get them immediately into rehab, which means you have to have the system set up. I would like to take what's successful down my home state, Massachusetts, and do that, and basically copy what works. And I think that's the direction we need to go as a state.
Thank you, Mr. Ladd. So at this point, we are going to open the floor to both candidates for about 4 minutes, and we'll see how the conversation goes. If you would like to respond to each other's thoughts and just open the conversation.
Great. One of the things I did last winter in the February or March was I worked with Representative Janice Cooper, who also represents the town of Yarmouth in the legislature, and she and I co-hosted a community forum at the Merrill Memorial Library where we brought together law enforcement and a young man who's now in law school, who's in recovery and working on this issue at the policy level, as well as some parents of some kids who've really had a hard time with opiate addiction. And we had community members there. Each person gave their perspective. And what we learned is that Yarmouth is no different than any other town in the state in that kids are at risk and we need to do a better job at education and prevention. We have good law enforcement in place. I voted in support of 10 additional drug enforcement agents to be part of our law enforcement prong. But the place that we're still missing is treatment. Unfortunately, the parents in the forum had to share the story that their young adult child could not find treatment in the state of Maine. We don't have enough beds. We voted in the last budget to open a treatment center in Bangor with 12 additional detox beds. Unfortunately, the Department of Health and Human Services has not gotten that treatment facility open yet. So we don't have enough treatment options available. I don't think it's right for someone to have to leave the state to get the care they need. Bart, I don't know what you want to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely superb. The idea is treatment and get it done now. And like I said, when you copy what other states do, I mean, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Other states are going through the same exact problems that we have. And they may be a little bit more advanced in their methodology of trying to fix the problem. And one of the things when I was in the Senate and the House down there in Georgia, I was at a member of the NCSL, National Conference of State Legislatures, and we would go around and we'd be talking among all the states as to what do you do to solve this problem, what do you do to solve that problem. I'm a big proponent of listening to how other states have solved it. Massachusetts, in this case, is very good, on track to having a good treatment program in place. And but again, it starts. You guys are that are 18 now. Here's your chance. Start it off by voting no on number 1. Okay, it's a cycle that starts very little, next level, next level, next level. Just nip it in the bud. Vote no on number 1, and let's help solve this problem from the start. Thank you.
Moving on. Maine has the oldest population in the country, with an average age of 43 compared to the national average of 38. Additionally, Maine is one of few states where the population has been decreasing. Both of these facts contribute to a shortage of skilled workers in industries ranging from healthcare to manufacturing. How should the state actively attract young people to join and stay in the workforce in Maine? Senator Breen, you will go first. We will start with 1 minute from each of you, followed by a 4-minute open discussion.
One of the ways that we need to keep and attract young people in Maine is to help them pay off their student loans after college. That's why I worked really hard in the last session and was successful at expanding a project called Opportunity Maine. It started as a program about 6 years ago that was only for graduates of Maine institutions and colleges. But because I represent a district where a fair number of kids leave the state of Maine to go to college, this was our chance, and we succeeded at expanding it. So now it doesn't matter where you get your bachelor's degree. If you put that bachelor's degree to work in the state of Maine, you can apply to this program and get up to $4,000 of income tax credit to offset your student loan payments. And employers can engage in this program as well. If they help kids pay off their student loans when they hire them, they are also eligible for some really good tax credits. So those are the sorts of concrete things I'll keep doing.
Thank you, Ms. Breen. Mr. Ladd, Your 1 minute.
To use a rough term, what we are in Maine is a demographic death spiral. We have more people dying. We have more people leaving the state than are being born or coming in. Okay? When you guys graduate from here, you're going to have some tough decisions. What do you want to do? Do you want to stay in Maine? Do you want to go out? What we need to do as a state legislature is make Maine enticing for not only people to remain here, but also to come in. And that's jobs, that's low taxes, that's an environment of where people want to live full-time year-round. We have some challenges in that in the wintertime, certainly, but by God, the summers here are drop-dead gorgeous. We need to emphasize the advantages we have, and we have to work to be able to create the jobs and create the environment for people to want to come here and live.
Thank you, Mr. Ladd. We'll now open it up to 4 minutes of open discussion.
Do you want to start, Mark?
I'll go first, yeah. One of the things we did down in Georgia, and you know, I just happened to be there, and at the time, Governor Zellmiller put in a what they call the Hope Scholarship. If you're a Georgia resident, we put in a lottery. That lottery went strictly for education. It gave free college tuition to every single student in the state of Georgia who had a B or better average. And that, 20 some odd years later, is still in place down there. Now, that is an enticing thing to do. We have a lottery already. We can't do that here. You know, the money got petered away. But nonetheless, there are ways we can get creative in how we set up our tax structure here in Maine. And one of the big things I want to do is replicate what I did down in Georgia, which was cut property taxes for homeowners here in Maine. Now, you know, you're kind of saying, okay, I don't own a house or anything like that, but think about this. We want you to come back to Maine. We want you to live. If we can cut your property taxes, and here in Yarmouth, if you look at the numbers and everything like that, with the property tax proposal I put in Georgia, if we put it in here in Maine, that we would be able to, over an 18-year period, save a family enough to send them to college tuition free. That money that they'd be able to save just on property taxes by rejiggering the tax program and the tax money that goes to schools and emergency services, if we can move that and take it off the burden of homeowners, then we can supply one in Yarmouth is a little less than Cumberland right next door, but nonetheless, your parents would be able to save over an 18-year period enough to pay for college tuition at one of Maine's flagship universities.
Do we have more time? Okay, great. I think of this the way I think of a lot of government issues, which is government can't do everything. But what we do, we need to do very, very strategically. And what I see state government doing with growing the economy and keeping more young people in Maine is a couple of things. One, we need to expand our infrastructure, in particular our roads, bridges, and ports. And also, you know, there's huge swaths of Maine that don't have internet access. So there's an enormous number of entrepreneurs out there who are working in local food and local agriculture and aquaculture, growing, you know, huge things of kelp to put out in the marketplace, and they don't have internet. I mean, how can you grow a business without internet access? So that's one thing state government needs to get more involved in. Secondly, you've probably all heard about the closing of all the paper mills. We still have an enormous amount of high-quality wood in Maine, and it's now time, because of global forces, to figure out what is the next thing we're going to do with wood fiber. And that's where the university system comes in. That's why I supported the research and development bond that we passed last session. And we need to be very, very strategic about how we spend our limited resources and make sure we're doing research, development, and making sure our students are getting into the next economy. Thank you.
Going off of that last question, this room is filled with 500 or more students, many of whom hope to attend college and gain a quality higher education. However, college is increasingly unaffordable for high school graduates in the state of Maine. How do you plan to actively support students in obtaining their goal of an affordable higher education? And you will each have 2 minutes for this question.
And who would you like to start?
We'll start with Mr. Ladd.
Okay, well, just explain that. The key to affordable college, and I encourage anybody who can do it, either through the GI Bill or if they're follow on, if you go into the military, is find ways to, I went through Air Force ROTC. I had the Air Force pay for my college at Purdue University, my engineering degree, and then I then served 8 years on active duty in the Air Force. There are creative ways to go out there and find ways to pay for college. Now, that having been said, there's also another way, and that is, again, what I just explained about the property taxes and the tax law here in Maine. If there's a chance to be able to save money and put it towards something as big as a college education, I'm all for it. Okay, I mean, money's not free, but you can change the tax laws. As boring as that sounds, if you change the tax laws and figure out how you afford this school, how you afford the emergency services, you can get creative and be able to have enough money to go to college. And like I said, it's if I haven't the bill that I want to import, what I created down in Georgia, we'll do that for one child, for somebody, 18 years worth of savings will pay for college here in Maine.
Thank you, Mr. Ladd. And Senator Breen, if you wouldn't mind sharing your thoughts on this issue as well.
Sure.
2 minutes.
Thank you. I think one of the core efforts that state government does is education, both pre-K through 12 as well as university. One of our challenges is that we have a lot of different campuses in the university system as well as the community college system. I supported in the last couple of years the very important changeover so that if you go to USM or SMCC, you can now trade credits between the two systems. So if you get credits at SMCC and you move over to USM or UMaine Orono or whatever, you can now take the credits you've gotten in the community college system with you into the university system. We need to keep doing things like that to eliminate the administrative barriers to student success, and I will continue to work on that. As you might know, we have had a tuition freeze at the University of Maine system for 5 years. Well, that's not really sustainable. If we want to keep tuition low, which I absolutely do, we have to fund the university system at higher levels. And that means that more of our state budget needs to go into higher education, whether it's the community college system or the university system. The other thing, I don't know if you've been tracking what's going on at USM, but there's a new president there, a man named Glenn Cummings, who's doing great things. He's a former legislator, and he has really kept us in the loop on a regular basis. What he's doing is internships. There's only 2 majors now in all of USM that don't have an internship requirement. So it's modeled off the Northeastern Co-op program in Boston, which probably you're familiar with. And so that's going to provide real-world connections to Maine-based industries for Maine university kids. And we need to do more like that, where kids in Maine are entering the system, but also entering the business world at the same time.
Excellent. Thank you both for your answers. Bringing it back around to part of the purpose for this debate, the divide in our country around political issues seems to be getting out of control, with instances of personal attacks, hatred, and even violence becoming regular mentions on the news. This, of course, applies to the presidential election, but we've also seen this happening between our major political parties, our business leaders, and our friends. With this in mind, please explain how you are qualified to bring the Maine legislature together to make progress for our state, and if possible, provide an example of when you successfully worked with someone of opposing ideas to make meaningful progress. You will each have 2 minutes to answer this question, and we're actually going to start with Senator Breen next.
Thank you. I actually have some really good news for you. The Maine legislature is a remarkably civil and respectful place to work. And there's some people here who've come up and helped us do our work in the Senate through the PAGE program. And this is the pamphlet that's on the back as you leave to be an honorary page in the Maine Senate. I invite you to come up, whether I win or not. And you can see that the Senate gets along, there's a lot of value on decorum and respect and personal interaction. The other thing is we have a committee system where we have Republicans and Democrats and senators and representatives on every single committee. Every bill in the state of Maine gets a public hearing and a hearing before the committee, and that's really where the nitty-gritty bipartisan work gets done. And I encourage you to take part in that if you can. I would say that we don't have a civility problem in Maine in the State House. In my opinion, we have a civility problem in the Blaine House, which is where the governor lives. And I was part of a bipartisan effort to make sure that the Land for Maine's future conservation bonds were issued after the governor refused to issue the bonds that the voters of Maine had approved. And I was a leader, because of my work in Falmouth on conservation, I was a leader of a bipartisan statewide coalition that pushed back on the governor and made sure that he issued the bonds that the voters had approved. The Land for Maine's Future program had 30 projects all over the state, and we had 4 in Senate District 25, 2 in Cumberland and 2 in Falmouth. And I'm really pleased to report that those projects closed. They got the money they needed, and that was because every legislator across the state knew the value of the Land for Maine's Future project and worked with their local communities, and we took a unified approach and pushed back, and we were successful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Breen. Mr. Ladd, if you'd like to respond.
When you talk about civil discourse, you have to step back a moment and take a look. And, and I'll be very frank, as Mainers, we agree on more than we disagree, okay? And you have to realize that as Americans, we do too. But when you get into this 24-hour news cycle, the TV shows want you to watch them. They are going to create conflict. They're going to create all this, what you see happening on the national level. In the state legislature, like you said, people work well together, okay? You're going to have differences or along the edge, different taxes, different things here, but both of us want to move Maine forward, okay? There may be a different path we want to take, so forth and so on, but both of us have at our heart that we want to move Maine forward. So if you keep that in mind, then you kind of get around the civil discourse. So as far as the governor goes, yeah, he said some things he ought not to, and we'll take care of that when we get the General Assembly back into session. But I don't want you to think that state government runs the same as the national government. The old adage on news is, if it bleeds, it leads. Well, that's true for local news shows and everything, but on a national level, they want to create conflict because they want you to keep coming back and watching their shows. But people generally are well-intentioned, and whoever goes up to Augusta in January, or actually signed in gets sworn in December, is going to do a good job in their view for the people of Maine and the people of this district. Thank you.
Thank you to both candidates. As you are well aware, the Syrian refugee crisis has left millions either internally displaced or fleeing violence in their home country. Violence persists in other areas of the world as well, leading to an unprecedented amount of refugees worldwide. Do you believe that Maine should increase the number of refugees we accept? Please explain your position and delineate how the state should go about pursuing this policy. You will each have 2 minutes for this question, followed by a 3-minute open discussion. Mr. Ladd, we'll start with you.
Okay, it was very hard to understand you. What was the specific question again?
Yeah, let me repeat. Do you believe that Maine should increase the number of refugees we accept? And please explain your position and delineate how the state should go about pursuing this policy.
Okay. Yeah, somebody joked to me, hey, do you want to build a wall? No. America, our entire country was built on having refugees from other countries, okay? My family goes all the way back to the 1620s, I think the second ship after the Pilgrims coming over here. I do not believe we should shut our doors for immigration. I do believe that it should be done legally, it should be done thoughtfully. But, you know, you go to, anybody ever visit the Statue of Liberty here? Okay, you know, bring me, you know, your, whatever the week and everything, whatever that quote is, I don't have it at the top of my head. But if you think about it, our country was founded as a haven for refugees. I believe we can do it and continue to do it, but we must be able to have a structured set of laws that we follow so that we protect the citizens who are here and also the refugees that are coming. We have a very ordered method of doing it, and I support that.
Thank you, Mr. Ladd. Senator Breen, your response?
Well, the thing is, immigration is essentially a federal issue. So by that I mean it's really up to the U.S. Congress to control and regulate and monitor the way people come in and out of our country. Once they're in our country, they can go anywhere from state to state. So it has impacts on states and cities and that sort of thing. But we don't, at state government, we don't regulate it. Here's the thing we do regulate, is whether we're going to give immigrants who land in Maine any state aid while they have a period of time where they are not allowed to work. So for instance, if you have a PhD, if you're a doctor from Syria, or an artist, or a scientist, and you have fled with your family, you land in Portland, no matter how educated you are not allowed to work by the federal government law. You're not allowed to work for 6 months. So because we have a brain drain, because we need to build our workforce, because we need more young, educated people in Maine to grow our economy, I think it's a good investment for states and cities to help that family out for 6 months. For those first few months when they land, so that they have housing, they have some counseling. I mean, these people have been through trauma, real huge trauma. And they have the clothes on the back, the clothes that they need, food, and whatever they need in those first few months to get settled. And think of what they're going to feel about the people of Maine after they receive that support. They're much more likely to stay here and add not only their years of education, but their tenacity. I mean, these are people who have survived, who've made it. They have enormous capacity for success, even just by landing here. So that's where I think the state and local government comes in, is supporting people who can be real assets to our state in the future.
Thank you. We'll now open this issue up to 3 minutes of open discussion.
What would you like on this particular subject? Okay. What you're seeing at the national level is not something that should be thrown upon states. Okay, you have the federal government now not enforcing laws. You have laws that need to be changed. You have, you know, what she's talking about, not being able to work for 6 months. We can change that at the federal level. The whole idea is that we need to support, you know, what the basis of what this country was founded on. In other words, bringing people from across the globe into the great melting pot that our country is. Our national motto, E pluribus unum. I don't know, where's your Latin teacher out there? Okay, out of many, one. Okay, we have formed one country out of many, many, many disparate and different backgrounds. Okay, I'm a firm believer in that. I think that we should support in every opportunity that direction for our country to continue, because we've always been a welcoming country, and I firmly believe that.
I agree.
Excellent, thank you very much. All right, so as one of the last questions of our debate today, we'll take a minute just to discuss one of these citizen initiative referendums. Question 4 reads, do you want to raise the minimum hourly wage of $7.50 to $9 in 2017, with annual $1 increases up to $12 in 2020, and annual cost of living increases thereafter? And do you want to raise the direct wage for service workers who receive tips from half the minimum wage to $5 in 2017, with annual $1 increases until it reaches the adjusted minimum wage? So again, how do you feel about this citizen initiative referendum, and why? And if you could spend 2 minutes each responding to this question, and we'll start with you, Mr. Ladd.
Okay, this is one of those toughies because everybody wants everybody to make more money, okay? But if you don't have a job, you can't make money. When you're talking about entry-level positions, you're talking generally small businesses, and you have to get in the business environment. You have to have a positive business environment for jobs to grow. Okay, if you talk to a small businessman who's out there scraping away trying to keep his particular business, afloat, and you increase the costs, if he's going to stay afloat, he's got to increase it at the other end. Okay? Now, what is going to hurt most are high school students who are out there trying to get their first jobs. Okay? With no working skills, no experience. Been there, done that, guys. Okay? Your employer or prospective employer has to be able to afford and take a chance on you being able to supply the labor that he wants. This isn't the high-end people who've been in the labor force for a number of years. We're talking about entry-level positions. And when you have public initiative like this, you can get things on the ballot that are very misleading. You can have tons of money come in from out of state, pouring their particular agenda and what they want to do. The whole idea is that everybody wants everybody to move forward. Everybody wants you to make more money and everything like that. But if you cut back on the jobs, if you don't have the jobs to begin with, it doesn't work. And that's been proven over time, and especially for entry-level positions. And this is where this particular referendum falls short. It doesn't differentiate between entry-level positions and everything like that. So, we want everybody to make more money, but we want to keep the jobs in the business environment here. If you want to make $11 an hour down there at McDonald's down in Falmouth, right on the door, $11 an hour. So, do we need to have legislation that mandates that? No.
Thank you, Mr. Ladd. Senator Breen, if you wouldn't mind chiming in.
Sure. Just as a little bit of background, as Bart said, this is a citizen initiative, which means that there's been no progress at the federal level, which is really probably the best place for a minimum wage increase. There's also been no progress in the legislature. So when that kind of gridlock happens, you get citizen initiatives. Obviously, we have 5 of them this year. So to me, that's an indication of the fact that we have a legislature that's really there to do its work, and we have a governor who's really there to veto everything. So we're going to keep working on that when we get back. But the thing about this one, I don't know if I would have written it like this, but I am supporting it, and here's why. Minimum wage really disproportionately affects women. There are about 60 to 65% of minimum wage workers are women. Many of them have children. And in case you haven't followed it, there about half of Maine children now, half of Maine children are coming to school hungry and are what's called food insecure, which means they don't know where their next meal is going to come from. That's because people are living in poverty. And I don't need to tell you, if you show up hungry at school, you're not going to learn very well. And that's true especially in the lower grades where brains are still developing and lots of other body parts are developing. It's really, really important that every child in Maine show up to school with the right nutrition in their system and ready to learn. To me, the minimum wage is part of that solution. And I think the claim that jobs are going to go away just hasn't been borne out by the data. If you look at the city of Seattle and some other places where, the city of Portland, where there's been a hike in the minimum wage, the sky hasn't fallen. So I think we'll do okay.
Thank you both. Before we conclude today's debate, we would like to invite both of you to give a closing statement. Please provide your final argument for why you deserve to represent Maine's 25th district in the state Senate, touching on the leadership skills you possess, experience you have that will inform your decisions, and your vision for the great 25th District. You'll each have 2 minutes, and Senator Breen, we'll start with you.
Well, again, I want to thank Yarmouth High School for putting all the effort you did into hosting this. It's been an enormous privilege and honor to represent Yarmouth and all the other towns in Senate District 25 and the Maine State Senate. I hope to go back, and for those of you who are 18 in the room or older, I hope I get your vote. There's a couple of things, again, I want to remind you about the honorary page program and encourage you or your younger siblings in middle school to come up and spend the day and really get your hands into the day-to-day workings of the legislature. I think you'll learn a lot. The other thing that's in the back is the Maine's path of legislation. So if you wonder how a law gets made, this is a really simple instruction. I'm looking forward. I hope that I have the opportunity to go back, serve on the Environment and Natural Resources Committee again. Our environment, our clean water, our clean air, renewable energy, all those things that are going to be so important to the future of our state for not only the tourism industry, but the manufacturing industry, and to protect against climate change. We have so much work to do. It's been a great privilege, and I hope I get to go back. And I thank you again for coming today.
Mr. Ladd, your closing statement.
Thank you. I'd certainly like to get up there and bring a fresh perspective to Augusta. I have, like I said, I have an engineering degree from Purdue. What I found out when I was down in Georgia 20 odd years ago was that there aren't very many scientists in the legislature. And when you have complex issues that come up that deal with science, they turn to somebody and say, well, what do you think on the outside? And invariably what happens, they always have their own agendas. And when we're talking about one of the biggest problems that we have, global warming, climate change, whatever you want to call it, you know, I actually was the default expert in air pollution down in Atlanta. We had a massive air pollution problem that we were able to solve by about the time 2002, 2003 timeframe. And by having somebody in the legislature who actually knows what's going on, it's amazing the type of proper legislation that can get passed. Now, I also bring in a perspective of looking at other areas, and that, you know, for like in global warming, you think about it, you look down in Massachusetts, they're going to have a big committee that's going to be meeting over the summer that's going to talk about moving daylight savings time. In other words, having it year-round. In other words, coming up next Saturday night, just not going back. Now, what would happen is, it's kind of complicated, but it would basically reduce the amount of energy, reduce the amount of global warming. These are proactive things that we can do as a state. And I have an interesting bipartisan background. My whole time I was in the minority when I was down in Georgia, but I got significant legislation passed in many ways by working across the aisle, working with Democrats, working with a Democrat governor, working with just about everybody on a proactive, positive way. And I want to bring that attitude to Augusta. So thank you.
Thank you both very much. Before we finish, I want to offer my sincerest thanks to Mr. Klein, Ms. Bongard, Ms. Casey, Ms. Barr, Mr. Pearl, Mr. Halstead, Ms. Sanders, Mr. Soul, Braylon Cresswell, Chris Romano, and of course Ravi Patel and Mr. Kim. Without them, this event would not have come to fruition. Without them, this event would not have come to fruition.
Yeah.
Most of all, thank you to both of the candidates for being in attendance today. This has served as a vivid reminder that although we have a diversity of opinion, we all subscribe to the hope of a better future for our state and country. Students can now return to their Period 3 class, but let's first give one last round of applause to Cathy Breen.